A little chainsaw tip. Everybody loves a brand new blade on a chainsaw. A lot of times I'll get a brand new blade and I'll sharpen it before I even use it. Everybody loves it because it cuts so well. Once it starts to dull down and you file it, you get your chainsaw tooth, then you got a rake tooth right here. You notice how high up it is? If you look at it in the side, it's just a little bit below it. And this tooth is angled down. And you want to keep going at the same direction. They've got a little check line across your tooth here at your angles. A lot of teeth are different, whether it's a ripping blade or whatever. So as you sharpen the blade down, take the rake tooth down. It will be a much more aggressive cut. The more you take it down, the more aggressive it'll become. There's a secondary piece in the back. You're not supposed to file down any further than that, but by the time you get down to there, your tooth is just about gone. I'll file down into it a bit. The rake tooth is a lot harder to file. I suggest doing your rake tooth first with a flat file because of the fact that you may hit your brand new sharpened edge. So I'll show you how that's done right now. And a vise helps beautifully. Trying to hold the saw and do it, terrible. And just go across here, go slow. And you want to do everything even. If you do 4 on one, you want to do 4 on the rest of them. Or come in a little bit heavy on it, or you get a little light hit it again. So they're all about even. It will change the direction of your cut if you don't. I'm going about 5 times on this, so. Takes a little time. The aggression upon which you will get of a cut is a lot more. The saw will pull right into your work a lot harder because it's cutting and taking a much larger chunk. You'll know when you don't do that because when you're cutting, you've got fine sawdust, and that'll also be a dull blade. It'll be real fine sawdust, but your chips aren't big. The more space you have from the top of your rake to the top of your tooth in height, the bigger the chip, the more aggressive the cut, and the faster the cut. If you don't have a real powerful saw, you can bring it down, but know that it may bog down a bit and not be able to handle that much of a cut, that aggressive of a cut. You get a big saw like this, it doesn't much matter. I don't prefer these blades. This is just a cross-cut blade. I prefer a ripping blade, which is a lot further apart. It's a much more aggressive tooth. The teeth are not this close together. They're spaced about like this. But you get a much faster cut. And when you're ripping, it allows you to rip because you're going with the grain of the wood. Like I said, it takes a little while. A good file is much better for this, but now I've gone all the way through. So now, even though I've done this side, I may have hit a few. So I'll just come back and making sure that my new filing is even with the line on that tooth. And if you keep doing that, then you get an even straight cut. If you've got some teeth that are straight across, some that are angled or more angled, the saw will pull, the cut will pull, and you won't get a straight cut. As in any other tool, a dull tool you will get cut and hurt with more often and much worse with a dull chainsaw than you will a sharp one. I got caught in my leg and I cut my artery in my leg, and it was a sharp blade and it really cut in. If it was a dull blade, it would have ripped my artery apart and they wouldn't have been able to save my life. Now I'll do the other side. Make sure you open it up enough so you don't hit your new teeth, new sharpened teeth. And then take your time, set it in there, come into the middle. You don't have to crank this thing down so hard. Your bar has a hollow spot down it, so if you go in too hard, you can screw up your bar. The first grind is going to be hard on these because it's a hardened steel, and that takes a minute sometimes. There we go. Oops. And you can see your other ones to see about how you're making, the amount of exposed new metal. If you're at an angle, it'll look like it's more. If you keep it flat, it'll be easier to judge. Get your arms set on your saw so you can keep that thing going straight through in one area. This isn't sliding off, hitting the tooth. You just go slow, even pushes, even strokes on it. You may see one that's a little lower and come back and give that a little hit. And you don't have to do this every time you sharpen it, especially if you take it down as much as I am. I'm cutting a very large tree down, and I want it to fall when I want it to fall. I don't want it to, once it starts to go, I want it to really bite in and cut and take a lot of material away, so it cuts quickly. I have to be careful and brush now because it will grab something that would just go up against and cut through. Now it'll grab it and rip it right into me, pull it into the saw. So we're clearing this property out. I cut trees down for years, worked in big saw pits, logging pits. They'll sell a chainsaw to anybody. If you don't have chainsaw experience, do not buy a saw this big. You cannot just glue a leg back on, or your head, or an arm. The smallest saw, get used to a smaller saw. Always keep your left arm stiff if you're left-handed. If you're right-handed, keep your right arm stiff. That way, if it cups back, it won't get you. Try not to have your face right over the blade either. It's simple little things, but a saw like this, you don't have a second chance. It whacks you, and you see how fast it goes through a piece of oak or locust or something like that. That's a lot harder than skin and bone. Just keep that in mind. So there's that. Now we'll do my other sharpening. Whoop. There we go. You can go all the way out like this, but it's easier if you get your arm placed right up against the saw. I like to turn my file as I cut, and I'm pulling up into it. I'm not just going across it, I'm pulling up in, so I get a scoop. If you ever see a chisel, it has the front edges. At the edge of the chisel, it's got a, it's cut this way. It isn't straight. And you're doing the same thing with a file. It brings it to a much finer edge. I do them the old-fashioned way. I do not send them out to have them sharpened. They do that with a machine, a tool, and as it cuts it, it heats it up. And once they do that to you, you cannot sharpen it yourself. It puts a tempering in the steel that you can't. The file will just run off of it. You'll have to have it sharpened each time. Take your time, watch what you're doing. If you're not good at it, wear gloves. I should wear gloves, but I also make knives for a living, so I cut myself all the time, and I don't bleed that much anymore. Almost done. And you can see where you've gone because you'll see after you've been using the blade, it's dirty underneath here. Now I'm back to my first tooth. A lot of times I'll go over that first, second tooth a couple more times to make sure I got it exact. And that's it. And check it. You want to be able to pull it down a bit. You don't want to be able, you want to get to the teeth, pull out to the edge, but you don't want sloppy. That way it rides along here. Another thing too, don't just grab it and think you're going to push it this way. You'll wind up taking your fingers apart. Push your file down into it in between. You can go up to the back side. You can see it goes nice. On the back side of here, over here, you got a grease fitting right there. There's a sprocket inside here that carries your teeth, your chain. That little hole, you get a little grease gun, a little small ones, and you pump grease right into there till you see it come out around here. Do that. If you want to make your bars last, do that every single time. I've done it recently, so I'm not going to do it today, but that's just another thing to do. And there you go.